Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to season 2 of the GrowthAmped podcast. We're calling the season Retained, as we are showcasing leaders in marketing and advertising agencies who are moving beyond traditional models to scale through modern technology and strategic partnerships. On this season, we aim to uncover the real-world challenges and opportunities faced by agency leaders, providing valuable insights. Since this is the premiere of the second season, we are just going to make sure that we set the context for what's to come. We'll start with a brief intro of our guests and we'll let them tell us their story. And then as we dive into their industry landscape and their agency's position, we'll also navigate through some of the challenges and future growth plans for them. And we'll wrap up pretty much after long-term vision and where they're headed. Without further ado, welcome, Joseph. How are you doing today?
Hey, and thank you so much for having me on today. It's a pleasure to be with you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be interviewed, discussing the subject matter related to the future of the marketing industry, as well as the present. This industry is such a wild and diverse industry where you have so many facets, so many moving parts that the dynamism is just endless. And so it's my pleasure to be speaking before you and your audience related to the subject matter. So I'm looking forward to our conversation of the different topics that are at hand that will be addressed. And it's really an honor. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. It's my pleasure. So, Joseph, I read about your background and tell us a little bit about your organization and what your role is. You started pretty young, so we definitely have a very inspirational story for some of our listeners. So tell us a little bit about it.
Well, thank you so much for bringing that up. I started my business at 19 years old. Look, I'm a fourth generation entrepreneur in my family. My great-grandfather founded Canal Lumber in Manhattan. My grandfather continued the business and co-founded Coastal Plumbing. And he also built the Royal Flamingo Smoke Club and the Garden Apartments in Grant City and 1160 Richmond Road here on Staten Island, the first all-electric building in the entire United States. My mother was an owner of Richmond Valley Veterinary Practice, and I have my own marketing agency. I am somebody who is a fourth generation entrepreneur in the family. So it literally runs in my veins. So what made me start this business? Well, you want to laugh? I'll tell you what made me start it. Many, many years ago, I'd say when I was 13, 14, 15 years old, I wanted to build a theme park resort on Staten Island, right? I know it sounds crazy. It sounds wild, far-fetched, and believe me, it was. But the fundamental truth is that it created the pathway to creativity and entrepreneurship. So I was able to synergize creativity and knowledge of business operations and the marketability of businesses into one. And so that's where 123 Publish Inc. was born. And not only that, I'm an author of 5 science fiction novels. And I'll tell you a funny story. My philosophy in life is this in business, right? If you can't beat them, compete with them, right? And so I started my business as a publishing company, right? That didn't last too long. It lasted like 2 months, honestly. But I started as a publishing company because I wanted to give authors the opportunity to publish their own books. But the thing is that, I saw a much larger need for businesses, right? I know it sounds crazy, right? Publishing to marketing, but publishing is marketing because you're releasing content. So that's where the name 123 Publish Inc. came from. Inc. is obviously the legal name. 123 means it's done like that. And publish means it's released. So that's where the name 123 Publish Inc. came from, right? The gold stars are creativity plus research plus understanding, which is the Staten Island map, because we are from Staten Island. We're a Staten Island-based company. Plus execution, the roadmap to results with the gold star in the middle. So that is the meaning of our logo here. But our company specializes in so many services, right? We specialize in content creation, with video marketing, website design, social media, with both social media advertising and content creation, like I just mentioned earlier, and posting and management. Virtual tours, that's a big part of our business. People could get an immersive 360-degree experience of different elements and things like that of their business, graphic design work. And we also do event planning, public relations, strategic partnership facilitation. We have a whole plethora of services in our company, search engine optimization. So my company has always been in the creative realm because frankly, I've always been somebody who's thought with a creative lens about things and always trying to find workarounds and understand certain elements because, the fundamental truth is that, we have 2 ears and one mouth for a reason. Now, to my friends who know me, I should be the last one talking about that subject matter because I'm a big chatterbox here. But the fact of the matter is this, though, understanding people, understanding businesses, understanding brands gives us the opportunity to grow your business and take your passion to a whole new level. So my business, like I said, is a creative digital marketing company. Aside from us having the tagline there to make sure that we're distinguished as a marketing company, we're a creative digital marketing company for a reason. And that's why we're here as a business, because we worked with many businesses across different industries, from the hospitality industry to legal to government to a whole myriad of industries. And so, with that being said, we are here to take your brand to the next level.
Amazing. Thanks for great introduction, because you covered a lot of things there,
Thank you.
and you gave me a lot to unpack. So it's great. So it's going to help us, take this the conversation forward. So I looked through your client list, and it looks like a lot of them are local businesses
They are.
and all located within like an hour's drive from New York City. Is that about accurate?
That is pretty accurate, yes. And most of
Okay.
them are within New York City.
Gotcha. So yeah, I'm curious to know, what does a typical day look like for you, given your niche as well as your geographic location?
There's no such thing as a typical day in business. If you're a business owner, there's no such thing as a typical day. There are always anomalies, especially in my business. We have meetings, we are editing videos. I'm doing a lot of the work myself. We're building websites, developing social media campaigns. It's all depending on what is going on, really, right? What's in the here and the now. We have to live in the moment, but also plan for the future at the same time. But more so living in the moment, more so the operational side of things. So, like I said, a given day, like I just mentioned, we have so many things going. Meetings, where meetings are a very common thing in my business, whether they're in person, mostly remote, but in person though. And the other thing is going out to film shoots, going out to jobs, editing videos, building websites,
Yeah.
creating social media campaigns. Like, there's no such thing as a typical day in my business because each day is different. Let's be
Yeah,
honest here.
for sure. So as with most founder-led businesses, right? Or founder-operated businesses, if I was to say, how do you think about scaling without losing quality or control?
Well, first and foremost, I actually just finished this up. I built out the standard operating procedures. A lot of businesses don't have SOPs. SOPs are fundamentally important because they serve as reference guides for what employees or ICs, in my case, I have ICs because I have the ability to do that, but what employees or ICs should be doing and how they should be doing certain things. Now, obviously, I cannot tell you how to do your job from left to right to in between. You need to have some sort of fundamental knowledge.
Hmm.
But we have standard operating procedures in place because clients ask for certain things depending on the service. We have communication protocols. We have engagement protocols. We have execution protocols. We have special circumstances protocols. We have certain protocols like that are serving as reference guides for when jobs arise.
Right.
Additionally, the other thing that I want to note is this too. We also have certain branding policies in my business, the gold stars, the black background, all those elements like that. Those are our brand. That's our brand here. And we also have products on our website. While they're called services, and yes, contractually they're services, they are products because you can be able to see what we have on our website. So
Well, for sure. So in this line of work, right, what are some major shifts or trends you're seeing, broadly in marketing and advertising at this point?
oh God, that's a great question. I could tell you so many things that are happening right now. First and foremost, when I started this business, everybody was shooting an iPhone and whatever. None of this fancy camera stuff. Yeah, you had the camera crews and whatnot, but people did not use that as the status quo. That started coming along more around 2022, 2023, 2024, right after the pandemic, obviously. The pandemic shifted everything. The pandemic, actually, believe it or not, I know this sounds crazy, but it raised our standards in our business. It raised our standards because the public wanted to see more content. The funny thing is this, right? People say this back then. I was kind of ahead of my time, right? That because social media was not as embraced as it is nowadays. Now you have social media, which is the number one way people find out about companies and how they find out about events, how they find out about products, services, whatever, right? And
Right.
the fundamental truth is that social media was not as emphasized back then until the pandemic came along. Once the pandemic came along, holy mackerel, people were checking their phones, scrolling through reels and whatever. And that's when social media companies revolutionized. And now we're creating cinematic quality content Stuff that you would see in movie theaters, 4K, 60 FPS, excuse me, not even 60 FPS, because that's actually real content, but 4K 30 FPS, right? Those things are fundamentally important like that, and you want those elements of that. And so we started doing that kind of stuff, and then eventually we started leveling with the VFX and SFX, sound effects. We want to create an immersive experience that when somebody's watching a video, they can hear, smell, taste, touch, and honestly see the experience holistically and wholeheartedly. And so that's where that came into play, right? And so, you know something, we went from being marketers to being creators at the end of the day. We went from being marketers to being Hollywood producers. We went from being marketers to being experiential builders. So that's how it kind of evolved because we're now creating experiences, folks. And that's what sets our business apart from the universe.
Yeah. You mentioned a great point here, right? That you went from marketers to creators. As this journey progresses, right? Of
Yes.
course, there's an elephant in the room. What are your thoughts about, AI right now as a production tool,
Let me tell you what
a
I think of
client
AI.
expectation? Yeah.
AI, there are those who are cynical of it, and I get it. Sometimes it kind of cheapens the quality in some cases, but in all reality, if you use it the right way, my God, it can level up your game so much so. And it builds efficiency. And yes, some artists are going to get pissed off with me for saying that. So be it. And I feel for them. I understand where they're coming from, but they got to pivot now. People said, I'll tell you a funny story. Years ago, my Uncle Robert, and my Uncle Robert's one of my biggest mentors in my business and in life. My Uncle Robert said this to me in 2023 when AI was emerging more ubiquitously, right? My uncle said, harness it or get chewed up alive by it. So what I did was I started harnessing it and not only harnessing it, leveraging it to improve the quality of my business, to improve the quality of my clients, and to use it as a tool to make a positive impact.
Yep.
And now we're using AI to enhance our videos. Like it's sick what you do with AI. It maximizes efficiency, but the thing is this though, it's not going to ever replace the human creativity.
Right.
Walt Disney said it best. As long as there is creativity in the world, Disneyland will never be complete, right? I say this about my business. As long as there's creativity in the world, my industry will never be decimated.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, the advertising and marketing, they run on creativity, right? And AI can only do the tasks that's assigned. Marketing and advertising run on creativity, and AI is not there yet where it can actually do creative copies independently and understand emotions. It'll get there, but it's not there yet.
It's semi there, but I'm going to tell you the God's honest truth though. There's nothing like culminating the real world and AI into one, right? That's what we do with our company. We culminate artificial intelligence and the real world into one. Like it's like almost like rhubarb and custard, right? Going together, right? And so the fundamental truth is this, right? Like I said, if you harness AI, if you know how to use AI, you are on the top. Kevin O'Leary, Robert Herjavec said it best. AI, harness AI. In fact, there was this guy named James Dumoulin. I don't know if you heard of the School of Hard Knocks. I have total respect for him. James Dumoulin goes around interviewing these billionaires and multimillionaires, and they provide tips about financial literacy and about impact making and about what they did to become successful so they could educate the young folks, particularly those in my generation, Gen Z, and even Gen Alpha, and even the Gen Y folks. They educate those folks about how they made a positive impact. And in so doing, they mentor them, and that mentorship brings forth that positive impact like that.
Yeah.
And so AI, if you're going to harness AI, my God, you're on the top of the world. If you're going to let AI chew you up alive and start acting like uh, you know, a woe is me type of person, guess what? You're going to be screwed. So I'm being honest here in the most blunt way possible.
I appreciate that. Well, while we're being honest, right? How are these trends, right? Whether it's AI or just people getting access to a lot more production quality type of devices at affordable prices, all these factors, right? How are these affecting your business directly or indirectly?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It does lower the financial barrier to entry. I'm going to be honest with you, as you just mentioned earlier. But with that being said, though, you need to harness the knowledge. Because let me tell you something. These colleges don't teach you diddly squat. They don't teach you anything. Okay. These colleges don't teach you anything about artificial intelligence. They are afraid that AI will decimate them. I hate to tell you this, it's already decimating the academic institutions in the country and in the world. You have these research platforms like Grok, right? Grok is a very popular research platform. You have ChatGPT now, which has a thinking model, right? Where it actually does research and it scrapes websites and scrapes data. Now, is the most accurate? You should always fact check before you do anything and rely on AI. But the fundamental truth is that, in my humble opinion, these professors will not teach that. I'm not saying all college professors are bad and whatever. I'm not here to be insulting. I'm here to tell the God's honest truth. Life is a learning experience. Okay. Let me tell you something. I'm learning to this day right now. I learn constantly, right? Life is all about learning. If you think you know everything, then you're screwed at the end of the day, right? Let's be honest here. The fundamental reality is this, right? You want to harness AI. You want to harness it and you want to use it. Imagine that I'm holding this ball, right? This illumination ball, right? And the ball serves as the AI, right? You want to harness it and you want to control it. Because once you control it, then it becomes part of you like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we talked a little bit about the creativity aspect of the business, right? Now, how do you help clients connect the creative asset to actual business outcomes like, inquiries, bookings, foot traffic, or sales?
Sure. Well, there are many ways of doing it. Number one, we do creativity, right? And you just mentioned it earlier. Creativity is all encompassing, right? We're not here to be salespeople, right? We have this idea, right, where you're selling value and selling emotion. If you're selling products, you're giving yourself a cheap shot. When you're selling value, selling emotion, selling education, selling experience, playing people's emotions, making people feel in a certain way, good, empathetic in some cases, making people feel happy. You think about it like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The self-actualization component is the top hierarchical element, right? And so that component, making people feel good about themselves and making people feel like they're part of something, that element itself is what you're going to use as your crown to your uniform, right? And that in itself, I don't want you to say uniform, but that will be the crowning jewel, right, of your brand. Knowing what people want and then being able to produce content accordingly to your brand like that. Now, when you're in business, in fact, I say this to everybody, right? Having a small-minded mindset is stupid. And I'm sorry to say it's stupid, but it's stupid. That's called mediocrity. Okay. And mediocrity is not what we strive for. We strive for excellence. And so what I believe is fundamentally important is this, right? You want to tell a story about your brand, right? If you go to Red Bull, right, you don't see Red Bull throwing its cans around into social media. You see people having, like having fun. They're jumping off of rock walls. They're skiing on the Swiss Alps. They're doing all sorts of crazy stuff like that. Why are they doing that? They're telling a story, the brand story that is, right? Red Bull gives you wings, right? Have you ever seen Red Bull's content, right? You know, like Aunt Butchie's, my client on the South Shore of Staten Island, Aunt Butchie's is telling a story about the food it serves, but in a way of not sales pitch, in a way of content creation and education. Its recipe reels get thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of views for a reason, right? But more than the views, though, people then see the stuff on social media and they're like, oh my God, I got to try this, right? They go to AF Bennett Salon and Wellness Spa, seeing somebody having a great experience, drinking a hot cocoa at Christmas time, getting a nice hot stone massage, getting a nice steam shower, getting a facial that is rejuvenating. Those core elements appeal to people's emotions like that. The New York Plain District, people having a great time at the car show, at the food crawl. Those things are important like that because they convey a story. They convey people's emotions like that. And people are like, I want to try this out. And so what we do is we culminate the experience of people, right? And we bring that experience to a whole new level, to the level of the brand. And then on top of that, before we even do the creative element, right? We do market research, right? What is our market calling for? What are the four types of segmentation, right? Geographic, psychographic, behavioral, demographic segmentation. Those four types of segmentation dictate the direction of our content. Who are we appealing towards? Which audience are we here to focus on, right? That audience will then be featured in our content, right? Who are we targeting, right? And then we launch sometimes ad campaigns, right? We'll do an ad campaign on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, preferably Facebook and Instagram, because that's where the bulk of our audiences are located, obviously, right? That's where most of the populace is located. Unless you're appealing to Gen Zers, the fundamental truth is that most of your audience is located on Facebook and Instagram, especially Instagram these days, Gen Y and parts of Gen Z, right? The older generations, the older age groups of Gen Z, right? Like my age, right? I am on the border of Gen Y and Gen Z because I'm born in 97. But the fundamental truth is that, you know, you need to know where your market is and your content needs to be appealing to that market. And like I said, the AI game has put a lot more pressure, but in a positive way though, to make that impact.
It's definitely made it easier to target your ICP, hasn't it?
It has, but it also doesn't always know the audience as well. Because a lot of times with AI, it does more broad targeting. And when you're a local retail store, or when you're a local retail store or restaurant or whatever, sometimes you need to engage in micro targeting practices. And so it's better to sometimes control the targeting if you know your audience pretty well. And if you're a marketer, you should know your audience to the T. That's when we go into business. When we go into business, we do a whole brand immersion, right? We understand the product, the pricement, the price, the placement. We understand what that business is about, inside out and backwards. We take an individualized, holistic approach to that business.
Talking about that, this helps me segue into my next questions, right? What kind of businesses are the best fit for 123 Publish?
Well, we have a whole diverse portfolio, right? A whole Rolodex of businesses. Hospitality, definitely. Restaurants and retailers, places like AF Bennett. Also, law firms, lawyers, government clients, you name it, we deal with it. So we have a whole diverse portfolio, but I would say law firms, retailers, restaurateurs, and those in the hospitality industry.
Perfect. So you've been very focused on the local market, right? And of course, the Big Apple is home to so many thousands of establishments that fit this. Talk to us a little bit about what are your goals for the next 12 to 18 months? Just looking out. Is your goal to stay focused? Are you going to go out to the tri-state area or beyond?
That's a great question to ask. You may ask. Well, I don't know if you ever got a chance to look at my website, but on my website, we have these products that are there, right? Aside from the fact that it makes it a lot easier to quote clients in the spot, these products are there because we're scaling up now, right? This is a time for us to scale. This is the opportunity for us to scale up. I already have a sales team being developed right now in my business. We're going to be bringing in salespeople, and they're not salespeople; they're relationship builders. Because what they're doing is they're establishing relationships with clients, right? They're networking. They're talking to clients. You have two ears and one mouth for a reason. For every five words a client is saying, you should be saying one word, right? The 5-to-1 ratio, right? Matters this, though, right? We have that ability, right? And so we're going to be bringing in salespeople, which we're already doing right now. Additionally, we also have an editing team out on Long Island that we work with for video editing. Was doing a lot of it myself. I'm still doing some of it myself, believe it or not, because I do like to control certain content parameters. But the fundamental truth is that delegation is something that is important because it gives you the ability to scale up and have a self-sustained company. So I see myself honestly within the next 6 months of having a fully self-sustaining business soon. So I can work on my other projects, which I'm not at liberty to discuss right now because they're currently in the works. But let's just say that you're going to be seeing a lot of big impacts in the tech world happening, hopefully by next year.
So, given what's at stake here, right? What's one significant challenge, right, that if solved would make the biggest impact in you achieving these goals?
Having the right people. And what is having the right people, you may ask? Reliable, trustworthy, and honest. That's simple. And skilled. People who are skilled, right? And you can't train certain things. You cannot train creativity. You cannot train, you know, like drive. People need to have tenacity in them. They need to have drive. They need to have the willingness to work hard, but also work smart. Both work hard and smart and be efficient.
Yeah, creativity and integrity it can't be taught.
Nope. You need to have that within
Yeah.
you.
When you consider your current client acquisition strategies, right, what aspects are working exceptionally well, and where do you feel like there's untapped potential or areas of improvement?
Sure. Well, number one, what I'd say would be working well would be, social media. We're always posting things in our stories, obviously. People see our stories, they see my story. I've got a nice following in my social media account. But not only that, but also going out to events, networking, talking with people, bring that humanistic side about you, if you will. And when people are at these events, you get to know them, right? Strike into the conversation. And then they ask you, what do you do? Right. And then you say, well, I have the marketing agency, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh, really? Well, what do you do? Do you do websites? Do you do virtual tours? And then that conversation then dovetails into an appointment, and that appointment dovetails into a sale.
Perfect. Are there potential areas where you're looking to improve the client acquisition or the positioning or just reach?
Sure. Some areas that we could improve upon are being more involved with the community, which we're doing more this year. We're dumping more money into sponsorship for not-for-profits. And
Mhm.
other things that we're doing is this too. Just going out meeting people. We need to do more networking, honestly, in my opinion, because that's the way we
Yes,
built the business up from the ground.
for sure. For sure. Yeah, I can attest to that personally, right? But networking events are way more.
And honestly, do less talking. Let your product speak for itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a given current state, right? If more qualified leads started showing up tomorrow, what part of the business do you feel is ready to scale, and what would be stressed first?
I'd say the video side of the business, but also the website side, because that's the most lucrative element of my company. The content side, excuse me, the marketing and growth, and the web and digital segments of my company. Because we have 4 segments, right?
You said those parts would be ready to scale.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Those segments, because we have 4 operating segments in my company, right? We have graphic design, graphics and collateral, that is. We have content and growth. We have marketing growth. We have content. And then we have the web. We have the web segment, of course. We have 4 segments of my business, right? Those segments have sub-services within them, right? So you organize your company like that. If you go to my website, go to my website right now while we're speaking, and you see the words, what we do, right? Marketing and growth, web and digital, content, and graphics.
Yes.
Those are the 4 segments we have in our business.
Hmm.
And we have those segments created like that. So it's easy for people to understand our company and what we do.
Perfect. Let's talk about operational efficiency and long-term vision. What's one repetitive part of running the agency that you think founders like you should no longer have to do manually in 2026?
Everything. And I say everything because, frankly, when you're an owner, you should be able to lead your company, be a leader. And the truth of the matter is this, right? Finding the right people is harder than anything else. I realize this. You know, Problem is this, right? I'm not going to say anything about people in general. You need people to see eye to eye, right? And be able to meet them where they're at, and they need to meet you where you're at, honestly. If they don't fit your vision, then you have to pretty much weed them out. And that's why we have a 7-part interviewing process with people. That's why we have certain procedures set up and protocols set up for a reason, because we need to know who we're dealing with, right? The biggest mistake I ever made was last year when I was trying to scale up. I was going through editor after editor after editor after editor. I went through 8
Yeah.
editors in the past year alone, right? Thank God I know my business inside out and backwards. But
Yeah.
the fundamental truth is that there are people in my industry that don't even know how their company works. They don't know the inner workings of their company. And when you're in business, Mark Cuban said it best. You better know your company like the back of your hand. You better know
Yep.
every single facet of your company. And if you don't, you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
It's simple.
For sure. So the next thing I was going to talk about is, how do you personally know when marketing is really working well for a client, and what signals do you trust most?
Well, we analyze the results. We do certain analyses, whether it's sales performance, whether it's lead generation, qualified leads. We analyze those elements like that. And then where our likely demographic is, where our likely target audience is, based on that data, we then leverage that to be able to optimize accordingly for the future of that campaign or future campaigns in general. Testing. That's what it's called. Testing. A/B testing, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever testing we're doing, we do
Sure.
testing like that. And then with those tests, then we can use that to hone in on our audience accordingly. And we will then allocate resources like that. Does
Got
that
it.
answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, I was looking for signals that you would trust the most to validate that your strategy is good,
Qualified
right?
leads and sales.
Right.
And not only those, but also, serving too, believe it or not. I know that this sounds crazy, but sometimes restaurants don't want to have online ticket sales or whatever. Where I tell the restaurant clients, as an example, survey the guests. How do they find out about this event? How do they find out about this dish? And a lot of times they see it on social media. They say, "Hey, I saw the video on social media. Hey, I saw this ad. I saw this. I saw that." And they come in, they engage the product or the brand.
Yeah, for sure.
The customer surveys, believe it or not, is one of the best ways to find out how people learn about your company. I know it
Absolutely.
sounds archaic, but it's really the God's honest truth.
Well, I was gonna say to that effect,
In
right?
addition to the
There,
pixel too, but yeah.
right.
'Cause with the problem with pixel, I don't mean to interrupt you here, but the problem with the pixel is this, right? Pixel is not always the most accurate because sometimes the attribution windows are so limited. Because sometimes
Right.
somebody might go to the ad, click on the website, and then they might leave. And then 5 or 7 days later, they might go back to the website. A person needs to be tapped at least 5 times or 7 times even before they engage a
Yes.
brand.
Yeah. I think that I was doing some research recently, and there was a magic number, 7 to 9 times before they actually put their money where their mouth is.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
What bothers me, I'm gonna be honest here. What bothers me about these social media platforms sometimes is you cannot control the frequency in some cases, right? On the ad types. And it sucks, man. Because I love to, inundate people with ads, 7 or 9 times within a given period. But the truth of the matter is that that cannot always happen. And what they'll do is they'll trick the algorithm to stop the ad from running purposefully when you're doing that. And it's ridiculous. I mean, that should be illegal, honestly. But, I can't dictate the rules of these companies. These are private companies. They can do whatever they want. But I believe that you should be able to control the amount of frequency. And you can with certain types of ads, like with reach frequency ads, with impressions, reach ads. Yes, you can control that because, an impression is how many times somebody saw an ad. A reach is like how many counts actually saw the ad itself. But, that's marketing 101.
yeah, this is, I think we've covered a lot of ground already. And I was going to add to your last point, right? There is nothing as priceless as customer feedback and CSAT surveys, right? How many people right, will look at Google reviews before they go to a place, or
Oh my
they
God.
go check out Yelp reviews.
You're talking to the person who does it all the time. I always, when I go to new business, check their Google reviews. That's the first thing that I check. One of the things that I push my clients to do is this: have a QR code on the back of your receipts, or even just give it to your clients. Hey, write us a review in Google.
Yeah. You reminded me of a very funny time that I went to the post office and I spent, I think, $50 it was on mailing something, and the post office prints you out a nice long receipt, right? And then there's a QR code at the bottom. I believe this was 5 years ago, and so I was like, "Oh, great, this must be for tracking." So I scanned the QR code,
UTM,
and
man. UTM tracking. Yep. Go ahead.
it was not for tracking. It was for a CSAT survey. And so I put in that CSAT survey that, hey, rather than have a barcode for a QR code for a CSAT survey, how about you make it easy for somebody to track the package with the QR code?
So
And I
much
think
more efficient, man. QR codes
exactly.
are the best.
So I think they did something years later, and things have finally turned around. As we get towards the end of this, I want to kind of talk to you about beyond your day to day. What's the long term vision for 123 Publish, and what strategic partnerships or resources you believe will be essential to realize that vision?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, franchising is number one. We want to franchise our company. As you see, we have our products already listed, ready to go. We're pretty much ready to go with our franchising. We have our branding ready. We got all those elements ready. We already have the equipment, listed and all that stuff. We are going to be franchising hopefully by the end of this year. Additionally, the other thing that I believe is going to be a great tool is that we partner with other marketing agencies, right? Because there are some cases where marketing agencies don't offer our services, right? Like virtual tours. Some marketing agencies don't even offer video, believe it or not, in house. They do it out of house. And so we have that blessing to work with other marketing agencies and form those strategic partnerships with other marketing agencies. And in some cases, we don't do things in house, right? SEO is something that we do not do in house because
Sure.
it's time consuming. It's something that we would rather source out when it comes to that kind of subject matter. But the fundamental truth is that we form strategic partnerships with each other because there are certain things that we can bring to the table that other marketing agencies cannot bring to the table, and vice versa. So the strategic partnerships are so important, so essential, and in my opinion, they will help your business ultimately scale up.
You had mentioned, having SOPs, and as somebody that has generated and written a lot of SOPs in my life, right? I couldn't agree more because that gets you ready to start franchising. And
Exactly.
I was gonna say that, hey, literally, this was what was going through my head when you were talking about how you've been successful with your local market. And if I was to take your model and say, what's the best way to replicate this in another big alpha city like LA, San Francisco, Dallas, Chicago? So I think you're pretty much on ahead of the eight ball there when you're
Thank you.
thinking about franchising.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to just
Um,
say something. The definition of a successful business is not always what's in the wallet. I mean, that's important, of course, but the definition of a successful business is a business that is self-sustaining, that you can be able to go on vacation for about a month and sit on the beach drinking tequilas here. The business is running itself. That's the definition of a successful business, a self-sustaining company.
I like to say it in a slightly different flair. It should be
I'm being
making money
funny
when
here,
you're
of course.
sleeping.
What was that?
It should make
Exactly, when
money
you're
while you
sleeping.
sleep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm
So
sorry if I'm being funny with when I say tequilas on the beach, but, comedy is an element of marketing. Let's be real here.
100%. Yeah, I'm a big Mad Men fan, so I can kind of relate to Don Draper's theory of happiness is what sells.
What's funny is this, right? Comedy and love. When I was in school, so I went to school for public accounting, but I took marketing courses, plenty of them. And the two biggest elements in marketing, right, are comedy and love. Those are the most appealing elements that one had, that the marketing could bring forth. But that's more of a general term, honestly.
Yeah. Hey, it's been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you for having me.
And it's been great. Yeah, my pleasure. For all the all our listeners or viewers out there that are looking to either start their entrepreneurial journey in marketing and advertising, or have already started and are looking for direction and some kind of a mentorship, right? What would you like to leave them with?
Sure. There are many things I would like to leave the younger folks with because I'm still pretty young. I'm only 28 years old. Um, whew, that's a great question. Work smart and hard. It is not going to be an easy road to be an entrepreneur, but it is satisfying when you see the impact that you're making. Don't be a money chaser, but be an impact chaser. Be somebody who wants to make the impact. Of course, some money is important, obviously. You work hard, you need to make money, of course, but chase the impact. If you're going to chase money, you're going to fail, period. And don't be afraid of failing. Failure, Michael Eisner said it best, failure is a part of success. And I have failed. And when 50 doors are slammed on you and that one door opens up, see those doors being slammed on you as room for growth and opportunity. And don't be satisfied because, the philosophy that I have in life is this, right? There's always a higher power, like God up there. And there's also somebody better than you, right?
Yes.
There's always somebody better than you, and there will always be somebody who's better than you. And when you have the philosophy in life and you push yourself and push yourself and push yourself, guess what? You'll grow. Get out of your comfort zone. And let me just say this right here. I don't mean to use any colorful language here, but fuck what everybody's saying, right? In terms of all the cynics. Oh, get a real job.
Right.
Don't listen to these fucking clowns, right? Because what the problem is this, right? And it's especially prevalent in the older generation, right? I'm starting to
Yes.
use this colorful language, fucking clowns here, but it's more prevalent in the older generation, right? They don't understand that being an entrepreneur is the best thing that could ever happen to you. I was fortunate, like I said, to come from a family of entrepreneurs and leaders and folks like that. But the truth of the matter is this, right? When people say get a real job, that's an avowal of mediocrity. Okay. That's what these idiot college professors are teaching you. I'm sorry, I call them
Yeah.
idiots because these people are just immature. They are they are mediocre themselves, honestly. And I'm not saying that all professors are like that because there are some pretty good professors out there, but they're mediocre. Okay. Mediocrity is something I spit at. I hate mediocrity. I despise it with a burning passion. Okay.
Yeah.
The truth of the
I
matter is
agree.
this, strive for excellence. And another thing I say is this, right? Don't look right, don't look left, look ahead. And don't look backwards either. That was a mistake that I personally made. And I want to give a shout out to my best friend. Look, I'm not here to go on an emotional bandwagon, obviously, but I've gone through some rough times in my life. Anybody who says that they've not gone through a rough time is full of shit. Okay, everybody's gone through a rough time, myself included. And I've recently gone through a very rough time personally. But have people around you that are there to build you up, that are there to elevate you, and they are there to love you. And I want to give a shout out to my best friend, Griffin Vasella, because let me tell you something, that guy saved my life. And it's a very personal thing. I'm not going to discuss it, but he helped turn me around. Having people like that motivate you, especially at your age, people around you that will lift you up and make you strong. Those people are the ones you want to surround yourself with. You don't want to surround yourself with people that are a bunch of garbage and low quality individuals. Surround yourself with quality people. And also, even the older folks, surround yourself with mentors, people that are there to help you, not there to belittle and berate you. Because when you have people like that in your environment, they're going to wreck your life. They're going to wreck your life. and they're going to belittle and berate you. But the fundamental truth is, and that's a mistake that you shouldn't make. There's always somebody smarter than you two, but I believe that I have a good command of the English language here. But the thing is this, right? You want to surround yourself with people that are going to build you up and elevate you and motivate you and tell you the truth, not those that are going to essentially, you know, screw you. All right. Because there are people in this world that are so self serving that they'll do things at your expense and not do things to elevate you. That's why I surround myself with very specific people. That's why I surround myself with business people. That's why I surround myself with people that are good hearted, like Griffin that I just mentioned earlier. That's why I surround myself with people that are intelligent. That's why I surround myself with people that are compassionate. That's why I surround myself with people that are motivators and not those who are just a bunch of yes people, who are supplicative and those who are just subservient. Those are betas. You want to be a alpha in this world to be successful.
Every Rocky needs a Mickey in his corner.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You're right.
Yeah. No, this has been awesome, Joseph. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for making time on a Friday. I know, last day of the week, folks are usually trying to change gears and go into cruise control for the weekend. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the honor and I appreciate the interview. And by the way, another thing is this too. I want to mention one last thing, if you don't mind. When you're out there, there's no such thing as a day off per se. It's
Correct.
24/7, 365. Even when you're on vacation in Disney World, that's the case. All right. Anyway, I want to thank you for your time, bro. I'm looking forward to this. All right.
Absolutely. Same here.
Thank you, pal. Have a great one.
Hey, you too.
Thank you. Bye.